Before the storm, before the hunger, the loneliness, the hallucinations, before the endless days and nights on the Pacific Ocean, there was just a man. A fisherman, ordinary in almost every way, about to face something extraordinary. His name was José Salvador Alvarenga. Alvarenga was born in El Salvador, a tiny Central American country bordered by the Pacific Ocean. Like many from the region, he grew up with the sea as both provider and danger. Fishing was more than a job. It was a way of survival. As a young man, he migrated north, eventually settling in Mexico, working as a commercial fisherman. He was tough, resourceful, and known among fellow fishermen for his endurance at sea. But José's life was not an easy one. He lived alone, estranged from family. His companions were other fishermen, men who braved the waters every day, men who knew the sea could both feed them and take their lives. On November 17, 2012, José prepared his small 23-foot fiberglass boat for a routine 2-day trip. His vessel was equipped with an outboard motor, an icebox for storing fish, and minimal supplies. At the last minute, a 22-year-old man named Ezequiel Cordoba agreed to join him. Cordoba was inexperienced, nervous, but eager for work. He wasn't a seasoned fisherman like José, but he wanted to earn money and prove himself. The plan was simple: head out into the Pacific, catch sharks and other large fish, and return within 48 hours. José was confident. He had done this countless times before. But what he didn't know was that fate had already written a different ending. The morning was beautiful, the sea shimmered under the sun, and the two men set off with spirits high. The motor hummed, carrying them farther from the coastline, farther from safety. At first, the fishing was good. They caught several sharks, storing them on ice. They joked, laughed, and shared stories. José teased young Cordoba, calling him the rookie, while Cordoba asked endless questions about fishing. For a time, everything seemed normal. But by the second day, the weather shifted. Dark clouds appeared on the horizon. The wind picked up. José checked his small radio. Other fishermen were warning of a storm system forming. Some boats had already turned back. But José and Cordoba were far from shore, and the storm was moving faster than expected. By the time they decided to head back, it was already too late. The storm arrived with ferocity. Waves rose like mountains. Rain hammered the boat. The little vessel rocked violently, salt water crashing over the sides. José fought to keep the motor running, but soon it sputtered and died. Lightning split the sky. Cordoba clung to the sides of the boat, terrified. The radio crackled with static, then went silent. They were cut off. The storm carried them out, farther and farther from land. The coastline disappeared. The fishing trip had become a fight for survival. By dawn, the storm had passed, but it had left devastation in its wake. Their motor was dead, their radio destroyed. The icebox with fish was still on board, but the supplies were already soaked. They had no anchor, no sails, no way to steer. Only a tiny, fragile boat drifting in the vast Pacific. At first, José tried to remain calm. They rationed what little supplies remained: bottled water, soda, and fish. They caught more fish when they could, but with no ice, they spoiled quickly. The two men collected rainwater in containers, sometimes even in their hands. When the sky was clear, they went thirsty. When the sky opened, they drank gratefully. Still, José was determined. He had survived storms before. He told Cordoba, "We'll drift a bit, but someone will find us. Just wait." But as the hours stretched into days and the coastline never reappeared, unease grew. By the end of the first week, the truth was undeniable. They were completely lost. The ocean around them stretched endlessly. No ships appeared. No airplanes crossed the sky. The current was carrying them deeper into the Pacific. And for the first time, fear sank in. This was not just bad luck. This was something far worse. The fishing trip was over. Now it was a matter of survival. The Pacific Ocean. It is vast beyond comprehension. Covering more than 60 million square miles, it is larger than all the Earth's land combined. For centuries, sailors have feared its storms, its currents, its ability to swallow ships whole. And in late November of 2012, two men in a tiny fiberglass boat had just been claimed by it. When the storm first struck, the sea was merciless. Waves as high as houses rose up and crashed down. Wind screamed like 1,000 knives. The rain stung like bullets. José fought the motor, desperate to turn the boat toward land, but it was no use. Salt water poured over the deck, drenching everything. Córdoba clutched the sides of the boat, shouting prayers over the roar of the wind. Then came the worst sound a fisherman can hear. Silence. The motor died. José grabbed the radio. Static. He called out, "Mayday, Mayday!" over and over, but the storm drowned his words. Then the signal cut completely. The radio was dead. The motor was dead. The sea had them. Through the night, they bailed water with their hands, trying to keep the boat afloat. The storm tossed them like a toy. Sleep was impossible. Hunger and thirst gnawed, but fear was stronger. By dawn, the storm finally passed. But what it left behind was terrifying emptiness. The horizon stretched in every direction. Nothing but water. No coastline. No other boats. No hope of quick rescue. José knew they couldn't panic. The first hours after disaster were critical. He inventoried what remained: a small cooler, some soda bottles, a handful of food scraps, and a few fishing tools. The priority was water. Without it, they would die in days. When it rained, they stretched out plastic containers, catching precious drops. They rationed carefully, sipping only when needed. When the skies were clear, their lips cracked, tongues swelled, and desperation set in. Fishing became their lifeline. With no working rods, José used his bare hands, diving into the water or snatching fish that flopped near the boat. When successful, they ate raw fish on the spot. Scales, bones, flesh, nothing was wasted. The salty taste burned their throats, but it kept them alive. They even learned to crack open sea turtles. Drinking their blood became an emergency water source, a technique old sailors once described, but few modern men had ever tried. But they weren't alone. Sharks appeared almost immediately, circling the boat. Their fins cut the surface, sometimes brushing against the fiberglass hull. They stole fish right out of José's hands. Some lunged at the boat itself, rocking it violently. The two men realized they were living not only at the mercy of the sea, but surrounded by predators waiting for them to slip. For young Córdoba, the reality of survival hit hard. He had never been far from shore, never lived this kind of fisherman's life. The raw meat sickened him. The thought of drinking blood horrified him. He asked José again and again, "How long until someone finds us?" José tried to reassure him, "A week, maybe 2. Someone will see us drifting." But deep inside, José wasn't so sure. He knew the Pacific current could carry them thousands of miles, and already they had drifted far beyond sight of land. The days blurred together. The sun was merciless, burning their skin raw. Nights were freezing, salt spray chilling them to the bone. They marked time by sunrise and sunset, but soon even that became meaningless. It could have been 5 days or 10. The ocean doesn't tell time. All they knew was that the food was running low and the water was never enough. Sleep deprivation and thirst brought visions. Córdoba thought he saw land on the horizon, a green line that vanished when they blinked. José dreamed of his parents calling his name. But the ocean offered no mercy. It only stretched, endless and indifferent. They shouted at passing seabirds. They prayed, they waited. But rescue never came. By the second week, hope began to fade. The fishing trip was no longer a delay. It was no longer a survival test for a few days. This was something else, something far worse. The men were trapped in a drifting coffin. No engine, no sail, no radio, no anchor. Just the current, carrying them deeper and deeper into the Pacific. And in José's heart, a silent, terrifying realization grew. They might not be found, not in weeks, not in months. Maybe not ever. The first storm had passed, but the true ordeal was only beginning. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into something else, an existence unmoored from time. The two men clung to their boat, drifting farther and farther from Mexico's coast, carried by currents stronger than any motor. And in that fragile fiberglass shell, The bond between José Salvador Alvarenga and Ezequiel Cordoba would be tested beyond imagination. At first, their conversations kept them sane. They spoke of their families, their homes, the food they missed. Cordoba dreamed aloud of tamales and fresh fruit. José described the beaches of El Salvador, where he grew up. At night, when the stars blazed above them, they talked of rescue. "Someone will find us," Cordoba whispered. José nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. "We'll see the lights of a ship soon. Just wait." Talking passed the hours. It made the endless ocean feel less silent. But talk couldn't fill their stomachs. The supplies were long gone. José became a predator of the sea. He dove into the water to catch fish with his bare hands. Sometimes, he snatched seabirds from the air when they landed on the boat to rest. They ate everything: raw fish, seabird flesh, turtles cracked open with bare strength. The blood became water, the bones became calcium, the feathers were spat out, bitter but sustaining. Cordoba, however, struggled. The raw food sickened him. He gagged and sometimes refused to eat. "Eat," José begged. "If you don't eat, you'll die." But Cordoba shook his head, his stomach turning. The hardest part was not the hunger, it was the waiting. Every morning they scanned the horizon, hoping for a ship. Every evening they lay back, exhausted, wondering if tomorrow would be the day. But the sea remained empty. The sound of the waves became maddening, a constant reminder of their prison. The boat rocked endlessly, never still. And time began to lose all meaning. Weeks passed, and Cordoba weakened. His refusal to eat raw fish and bird meat left him frail. He grew pale, his body shrinking from lack of nourishment. Hallucinations plagued him. He saw fruit trees on the horizon, fresh water pouring from clouds that weren't there. Sometimes he raved, speaking nonsense. Other times he went silent, staring blankly at the endless horizon. José tried everything. He joked, he begged, he reminded Cordoba of his family waiting for him, but nothing seemed to break through. One day, a seabird landed on the boat. For José, it was a gift, a chance at food. He grabbed it quickly, killed it, and prepared to eat. But Cordoba recoiled in horror. "I can't," he whispered. "Not raw, not like that." José tore into the bird anyway, feathers and flesh sticking to his hands. He offered some to Cordoba. "Eat, please, you'll die." But Cordoba turned his face away. That moment marked the beginning of the end. By the second month, Cordoba was skeletal. His eyes were sunken, his lips cracked. He begged José for fruit, for fresh bread, for real water. But José had none to give. Cordoba stopped eating entirely. His body shut down. José tried to force-feed him bits of fish, drops of rainwater, anything. But Cordoba refused. He knew death was coming. One morning, José woke to silence. Cordoba lay still. His chest did not rise. His eyes were closed. At only 22 years old, Cordoba had succumbed to starvation and despair. José was shattered. This young man, once full of nervous energy and hope, was gone. His only companion on the endless sea had left him. For days, José kept Cordoba's body in the boat. He spoke to him, begged him to wake. He couldn't bring himself to let go. But the tropical heat was merciless. At last, José whispered a prayer and pushed the body into the sea. The ocean accepted him without a sound. Now José was truly alone. No voice to answer him, no companion to share the waiting. Just the sea and his thoughts. For many, loneliness is a slow death. But for José, it became his greatest enemy. Hallucinations grew worse. He imagined Cordoba still there, speaking to him. He dreamed of family gathered around him. Sometimes, he forgot what was real and what was not. But through it all, one instinct burned stronger than the rest: survival. He refused to die. The ocean is vast. But nothing is vaster than the silence left behind when the only other voice is gone. When Ezequiel Cordoba died, José Salvador Alvarenga was left utterly alone. His boat, his prison, became a coffin of silence, drifting endlessly. From that day forward, survival was not just about finding food and water, it was about surviving himself. In the days after Cordoba's passing, José found himself speaking aloud. At first, it was to Cordoba's memory. He would glance at the empty space beside him and whisper, "We'll make it, don't worry." But soon, the conversations became longer. He told Cordoba about his dreams, about the food he craved, about the family he had left behind. He knew Cordoba wasn't there, and yet, in some strange way, it kept him sane. José built himself a routine, a rhythm to fight back chaos. Every morning he scanned the horizon for ships. Every afternoon he hunted for food. He became a predator unlike any other, chasing fish with his bare hands, catching birds that landed to rest, breaking open sea turtles for both meat and blood. He collected rainwater whenever he could. When skies were empty, he went thirsty. Each task was simple, yet it gave him purpose. Without it, the silence would crush him. But he was never truly alone. Sharks circled constantly, their fins slicing the water. At night, they bumped the boat, testing it, reminding him of how fragile his refuge was. José grew accustomed to their presence, yet they haunted his dreams. He would wake in the dark, imagining the boat splitting, the sharks waiting for him below. As weeks became months, José grew as mind began to betray him. He hallucinated feasts, tables of roasted meat, baskets of fruit, glasses of cold beer. He reached for food that wasn't there, only to grasp empty air. Sometimes he thought he saw land on the horizon, a green line, a mountain rising, only to vanish with the next wave. The line between reality and dream blurred. But every time he collapsed into despair, a single thought pulled him back: I must live. Time became meaningless. He no longer knew what day it was, what month it might be. His beard grew wild, his skin cracked and peeled under the unrelenting sun. But the boat drifted, always drifting. Through storms that drenched him, through scorching suns that burned him raw. Through nights so dark he could not tell where the sea ended and the sky began. José learned to surrender to the current. Fighting it was useless. Survival meant drifting endlessly, hopelessly, until something or someone intervened. Alvarenga was not a deeply religious man before, but alone on the ocean he began to pray. He asked God for strength, for a sign, for forgiveness. He promised if he survived, to change, to return home, to never take life for granted. His prayers echoed across the waves, the only voice left in an endless ocean. And though no answer came, the act itself gave him something to cling to. Over time, José began to view the ocean differently. It was no longer just an enemy. It was his companion, his captor, his test. He learned its moods, its sounds. He felt when a storm was coming. He understood when fish would gather near. In a way, the ocean became his only friend. But even that couldn't fill the silence. More than once, José nearly gave up. There were days when the thirst was so brutal he thought about swallowing seawater, a death sentence. There were nights when he considered letting himself slip overboard, ending the suffering in the jaws of waiting sharks. But something inside always stopped him. The memory of his parents. The dream of seeing home again. The faint spark of hope that, perhaps, one day, someone would see his drifting boat. It was fragile, but it was enough. For most men, a week alone at sea would break them. For Alvarenga, it stretched into months. He had no clock, no calendar, no human contact. Only hunger, thirst, storms, and silence. But every breath he took was an act of defiance. Every fish caught, every bird snared, every drop of rain collected was a victory against the ocean. The Pacific wanted him dead, but José refused to die. Time is a cruel enemy. At sea, it doesn't march forward in days and weeks. It expands, like the horizon itself, until each moment feels endless. For José Salvador Alvarenga, the days blurred into one another. Morning followed night, storm followed calm. He was trapped in a cycle with no end. And yet, each day meant survival. Each day was one step closer to a miracle he couldn't yet see. Food was both scarce and abundant. When fish swam close enough, José struck like lightning. His bare hands became his only weapon, fingers latching onto wriggling bodies before they could slip away. Birds too became prey. Seabirds often landed to rest, weary from migration. José would move slowly, silently, and then pounce. Turtles were his greatest prize. Their meat could sustain him for weeks, and their blood offered precious hydration. Every catch was a victory, but also a battle. The ocean gave, but only begrudgingly. Rainwater meant life. José learned to watch the skies, scanning for signs of storms. He stretched plastic containers, empty bottles, even hollowed turtle shells to catch every drop. But days of clear skies brought agony. His lips cracked, his throat burned. He would dream of rain, only to wake and taste nothing but salt. Water was more precious than gold. It was survival itself. Storms were both curse and salvation. They threatened to capsize the fragile boat, waves towering like moving mountains. José clung to the hull, praying the vessel wouldn't split apart. Thunder cracked, lightning split the sky, and seawater poured in. But when the rain fell, he opened his arms. He screamed into the storm, not in fear but in thanks. Because storms meant water, and water meant life. Sharks became José's constant companions. Sometimes they circled lazily. Other times they rammed the boat, testing it. One day José caught a small fish near the boat, but before he could pull it in, a shark lunged, snapping it in half. The spray soaked him as the predator disappeared again. He grew accustomed to their shadows, but the knowledge lingered. If the boat failed, if he slipped into the water, they would be waiting. If the storms threatened to drown him, the sun sought to burn him alive. His skin blistered, his lips swelled, his eyes burned from constant glare off the waves. He crafted crude shade from his clothing, from turtle shells, anything he could find. But the sun was relentless. Each day it took a little more strength. Survival meant hiding from light. In the middle of the ocean, that was almost impossible. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Seasons shifted above the Pacific. Migration patterns changed. New birds, different fish. Storms came and went with greater force. José marked the passing time not by a calendar but by the creatures that visited him. To him, it felt eternal, but the boat was still drifting, carried by currents across thousands of miles of open ocean. More than hunger, more than thirst, loneliness gnawed at him. The silence was unbearable. He shouted at the sky, screamed at the water, cursed at the birds. He sang songs he barely remembered, laughed at his own jokes, whispered to Cordoba's ghost. The human mind was not built for such isolation, but somehow José endured. He spoke to the ocean, and in his darkest hours he believed the ocean spoke back. The mind is fragile. José saw things that weren't there. A cruise ship glittering in the distance, the outline of land, a feast spread before him. Each mirage brought crushing disappointment. But hallucinations also became a strange comfort. They gave him something to look forward to, even if only for a fleeting moment. The Pacific currents carried him ever eastward. He didn't know it, but his tiny vessel was crossing one of the largest stretches of ocean on Earth. Thousands of miles of nothing. No islands, no ships, no rescue. Each sunrise was another day alive. Each sunset was proof that he had beaten the ocean for one more night. It was a battle fought in silence, day after day, month after month. The ocean is not simply water and wind. It is a test of body, of mind, of spirit. By now, José Salvador Alvarenga had been adrift for months. His boat, once a fragile prison, was now his entire world. His body had thinned to skin and bone. His skin cracked and scarred from the sun. His beard tangled, his hair bleached by salt and light. But it wasn't his body that threatened to fail him. It was his mind. Starvation took its toll. His muscles wasted away. His stomach shrank. Even when he caught food, he could eat only small amounts before nausea overtook him. Salt sores dotted his skin. His gums bled. His hair came out in clumps. Every movement was pain. Sitting, lying, even breathing became exhausting. His body was slowly shutting down, one cell at a time. Sleep was no escape. He dreamt of food, roasted chicken, steaming rice, bowls of fruit. He dreamt of family, he dreamt of land. But waking was torture. He would open his eyes to the endless blue horizon, to the rocking of the boat, to the same nightmare he had left behind in his dreams. Some mornings he wondered if he had actually died, if this ocean was purgatory. Even though Cordoba was long gone, José spoke to him often. "Help me, hermano," he whispered into the night. What should I do? He answered for him sometimes, carrying both sides of the conversation. Whether it was madness or survival instinct, these conversations kept him sane, or at least sane enough to keep going. Raised Catholic, José prayed daily, but alone on the sea his prayers changed. They became raw, desperate, not recitations but conversations with God. Let me live, give me one more day. If not for me, then for my parents, for my daughter. Some days he cursed God, other days he thanked him, but always he prayed. Because prayer gave him hope, and without hope he knew he would die. More than once he nearly drowned. One storm ripped across the ocean with such force that waves swallowed the boat whole. He was tossed into the water, salt burning his eyes, lungs filling with foam. He clawed at the boat, pulling himself back aboard as a shark fin cut through the waves nearby. Another day, dehydration struck so hard he collapsed. For hours he lay unconscious at the bottom of the boat, vultures circling overhead. Each time he woke. Each time he fought back. But each time he lost another piece of himself. Time no longer made sense. Was it January, July, November? He couldn't tell. He scratched days into the boat with a knife, but soon the markings blurred. The woods swelled, the ocean erased them. Eventually, he stopped counting. Time didn't matter anymore, only survival did. One day, a bird landed on the edge of the boat. José reached to grab it for food. But then he stopped. Instead, he let it stay. He spoke to it, called it amigo. The bird stayed a few days, then flew off. But in that time, it gave him comfort. Proof that he was not alone in this endless wasteland of water. It reminded him that life, fragile, beautiful life, still existed beyond his suffering. Ships appeared, at least he thought they did. Once, he saw a giant tanker pass just miles away. He screamed, waved, held up a turtle shell like a signal. The ship kept moving. Another time, he saw bright lights on the horizon, like a fishing fleet. He rowed desperately, only to find nothing but stars. Rescue always felt just out of reach. Hope dangled before him, then slipped away like water through his fingers. There were days when he decided it was over. He lay down in the boat, closed his eyes, and told himself he wouldn't wake. No more fighting, no more hunger, no more thirst. But every time, something pulled him back, the taste of rain, the sight of a bird, the memory of his daughter. Something inside him, something primal, stubborn, unbreakable, refused to let go. He didn't know it yet, but the ocean was guiding him. The currents that had carried him away from Mexico were now pushing him west, toward land, toward the Marshall Islands. After more than a year adrift, after storms and sharks, hunger and madness, death and despair, land was waiting. The end of his nightmare was closer than he could imagine. For more than 14 months, the ocean had been everything. It was his captor, his provider, his enemy, and his only companion. But now, after 438 days, something broke the horizon. It wasn't another illusion. It wasn't clouds or stars or the mirage of a ship. It was real. It was land. He almost didn't believe it at first. A thin green line against the vast ocean, palms, white sand, something solid. His eyes filled with tears. His voice cracked. Gracias, Dios, gracias. After 14 months of drifting, salvation was there, but still dangerously far. The ocean, however, was not done testing him. The currents that had carried him for thousands of miles now threatened to drag him past the island. José grabbed a broken piece of plastic and used it as a paddle. His arms, frail and trembling, strained with every movement. Waves smashed against the boat. His chest burned, his vision blurred, but he paddled. Because this was his last chance. The coral reef loomed beneath the waves, sharp as knives. His boat scraped, stuck, and tilted. José threw himself into the water. Salt filled his wounds, fire across his skin. He kicked, pulled, clawed toward shore. The sand was just feet away. His hands sank into it. For the first time in 438 days, his body touched land. He collapsed, too weak to even cry, his face pressed into the wet sand, tears mixing with seawater. He had made it. But salvation didn't end with land. He needed people. Staggering through the sand, he spotted huts, a village. Two locals approached, a man and a woman. At first they were terrified. A wild-looking stranger, long-haired, half-dead, stumbling from the jungle. José fell to his knees, his voice cracking in broken English. "Please, I need food. I need water. Help me." The couple rushed to help. They brought him coconuts, water, food. They guided him into their hut. José devoured the coconut water, the sweet liquid reviving his body. Tears rolled down his face as he chewed his first fresh food in over a year. He told them his story in broken phrases. The boat, the storms, his friend Cordoba, who had died. The villagers listened in shock. They knew he had endured the impossible. Word spread quickly through the island. A stranger had washed ashore. Soon, local authorities were called. Then, the news. A man missing for over a year had been found alive. He was taken to the island's main settlement, then to the capital, Majuro. There, he was placed under medical care. Doctors weighed him just 105 pounds. His liver swollen, his body scarred. But alive, miraculously alive. For 438 days, José had been cut off from the world. Now, for the first time, he was handed a phone. His hands shook as he dialed his parents' number in El Salvador. When his mother answered, her voice cracked. "Alvarenga, is it really you?" Tears streamed down his face. "Sí, Mama, I'm alive." The reunion, though only by voice, shattered the silence of his long nightmare. News spread across the globe. A man survives 438 days at sea. Some called him the luckiest man alive. Others doubted his story, insisting it was impossible. But medical examinations confirmed it. Starvation, dehydration, physical scars, mental trauma, all proved his survival. The impossible had happened. Though grateful, José carried a heavy burden. He had lived, but Cordoba had not. The guilt weighed on him. He often said he still saw Cordoba in his dreams, still spoke to him on quiet nights. Survival had given him life, but it had also given him memories he could never escape. But despite it all, José Salvador Alvarenga had done what no one thought possible. He had endured 438 days at sea. He had faced storms, starvation, sharks, and solitude. And against all odds, he had survived. When José Salvador Alvarenga finally returned to civilization, the world could hardly believe his story. He had survived 438 days adrift in the Pacific Ocean, alone, with starvation, dehydration, sharks, storms, and the relentless isolation of the open sea. But survival was only the beginning. Doctors were stunned. His body had endured the unimaginable. José weighed only 105 pounds. His skin was scorched and scarred. His muscles had wasted away. His liver was enlarged. Doctors worked carefully to reintroduce food and water, monitoring him for complications from refeeding. Every bite of fresh food was a miracle. Every sip of water was a victory. The phone call had been just the beginning. José returned to El Salvador, greeted by tears, embraces, and the overwhelming reality of home. His parents, who had mourned him for over a year, could hardly believe he was alive. His daughter, then still a child, stared at him in disbelief before throwing her arms around his neck. It was the end of one journey and the beginning of another. The world watched in awe. Television crews, newspapers, and online media descended. His story, raw, unedited, unimaginable, captivated audiences globally. Headlines proclaimed, "Man survives, 14 months adrift at sea, unbelievable human endurance, the miracle of the Pacific." José answered interviews with humility, often focusing on survival, faith, and the memory of Cordoba. Even in media appearances, José never forgot Cordoba. He recounted his friend's bravery, his struggle to survive, and the heartbreaking final days. Cordoba's memory became a solemn part of his story, a reminder that survival often comes with unimaginable loss. But not all attention was positive. José became embroiled in legal disputes over the rights to his story, compensation, and alleged ownership of his miraculous account. Media outlets sought interviews, writers wanted books, documentaries were planned. Though these conflicts were secondary to survival, they tested his resolve and reminded him that life on land brought new challenges, ones that were no less complex than surviving the sea. Surviving 438 days at sea had changed José in ways that were impossible to reverse. The routines of civilization felt alien. Food was overwhelming. Crowds were exhausting. Noise was unbearable. Yet he adapted slowly. He began walking on beaches again, swimming in small, safe waters, reconnecting with family and friends. Every day was a small victory. Every day was a reminder that life, though fragile, was worth living. José's story became more than personal survival. He spoke publicly about resilience, faith, and the will to survive. Schools, organizations, and even media outlets invited him to share lessons learned from the sea. His survival became a symbol, not of luck alone, but of human endurance, adaptability, and the primal instinct to keep living against all odds. Even as time passed, the ocean never left him. José spoke of dreams of waves, of salt water on his lips, of storms raging above him. Memories of Córdoba haunted him. Yet he carried forward. The man who had once been swallowed by the Pacific was now stronger, tempered by adversity. Every sunrise reminded him of the fragility and the preciousness of life. Every meal reminded him of what it took to survive. And every story he told reminded the world that the impossible is sometimes possible. José Salvador Alvarenga survived what most could never imagine. 438 days alone at sea, one man, a tiny boat, and the relentless Pacific Ocean. He endured storms, starvation, sharks, and solitude. He endured madness and despair, and he returned, scarred, haunted, but alive. His story is a testament to the human will, to resilience, and to the extraordinary capacity of people to survive against all odds. José Salvador Alvarenga's journey is more than a tale of survival. It is a story of the human spirit's unbreakable will, of endurance, hope, and faith. 438 days alone at sea tested every boundary of the mind and body, yet he endured. And now, as he walks on solid ground, he carries not just memories of suffering, but lessons for the rest of the world. Survival, José learned, is not just physical. It is psychological. Faith, hope, and mental fortitude become as critical as food and water. His ordeal proved that humans can endure far beyond perceived limits, but only when guided by a clear purpose, the instinct to live. Faith kept him alive. Though his religion had been personal, at sea it became a lifeline. He prayed for guidance, strength, and the chance to see land again. Hope sustained him. Each small victory, a fish caught, a drop of rain collected, a bird snared, was proof that life was still possible. These lessons became universal. Even in our modern world, hope can carry a person through unimaginable hardship. José's story serves as a reminder: humans are capable of incredible resilience. The ocean, vast and merciless, tried to claim him. Starvation, thirst, isolation, and despair were relentless. Yet he endured, a living testament to survival against impossible odds. His experience inspires scientists, adventurers, and ordinary people alike. It reminds us of our fragility and our extraordinary potential. Alvarenga spoke openly about his mind during the ordeal. Hallucinations. Talking to his dead friend. Dreams of food and family. He revealed that the mind, in extreme conditions, is both enemy and ally. Madness threatened him, yet his imagination also kept him alert, motivated, and ready to seize every chance at survival. Understanding the mental journey is as important as the physical one. Córdoba's death remained with him. Survival came at a cost. Every victory over the ocean was shadowed by the memory of his friend who did not survive. José honored his memory in private, speaking to him during interviews, and ensuring the story was never just about his endurance, but also about the cost of survival. José Salvador Alvarenga's story is a beacon. It shows the delicate balance between life and death, hope and despair, courage and fear. It reminds us that, even in the face of extreme adversity, the human spirit can persevere. We may be small against nature, fragile against the vast oceans, but the will to live can carry us further than we ever imagined. From a tiny boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, battling storms, hunger, sharks, and solitude, to landfall on a remote island. From hospital beds to family embraces, media attention, and the world watching in awe, José Salvador Alvarenga endured the impossible. He walked out of the ocean's clutches alive. A symbol of human resilience. A story that will inspire for generations. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and follow for more incredible stories of survival, resilience, and the human spirit.